Hi and welcome back to the chicken enclosure. A few weeks ago I published a film to help poultry owners understand what they needed to do to meet the requirements of the Avian Influenza Prevention Zone. On the 5th of December 2020 the UK government updated the guidance and we now have a new set of quite stringent requirements that we need to meet. In this film I'm going to walk you through them and help you potentially come up with some very low cost options. So come and join me. Hi, my name's Fiona and this is Hazel. The UK government in November 2020 brought in a number of restrictions to do with avian influenza, and this is to help safeguard our poultry because it is very deadly to them. As of the 5th of December we were notified that from the 14th of December we have to comply with increased restrictions, and this is a legal requirement. What we must do from the 14th of December is undertake increased biosecurity measures, so we must ensure that we are not spreading the disease between different sets of poultry. That means foot washes, it means disinfecting car wheels if you're going to other properties. But the main thing which is actually going to change is that we must keep our chickens either indoors or in fully enclosed netted areas. Now this may be intimidating for a lot of poultry keepers, but there are some low cost solutions. What I'm going to show you in this video is what we're doing to make sure we are legally compliant with the restrictions and talk you through some potential incredibly low cost options. So let's get started. These are the restrictions that all UK poultry keepers must meet. This covers all poultry, so that includes livestock and pets. So even if you only have one chicken, one duck or one goose, you must legally comply with all 6 from the 14th of December 2020 until DEFRA updates or removes the restrictions. Although there are 6 requirements laid out by the UK government, they essentially break down into 4 categories, and that's how we're going to deal with them. There's housing, there's effective disinfecting, there's restricting movements, and there's feeders and drinkers. The first requirement is to either keep your poultry indoors or in fully netted areas. This is the requirement which is worrying most poultry keepers that I talk to, so we'll spend most time on this and look at lots of options and hopefully give you some ideas that might work for you. There are a few days yet before the avian influenza restrictions fully come into force, and this is what we've decided to use, and it is work in progress and it will be complete by the 14th of December when we're legally obliged to comply. Now, this is an old polytunnel structure and we've had this frame for a long time. We've actually got 2 of these and the frame is in great condition. We're going to house the Orpingtons in a double length, so this is 3 metres wide by 6 metres long, so they'll have 3 metres wide by 12 metres long. We're then going to house our egg-laying chickens, so that's our Morans, our cream leg bars and Old English pheasant fowl, because we only have a few of them, in a 3rd polytunnel frame which is actually being delivered in a couple of days' time. The whole thing is going to be covered not with a polythene structure but with bird netting, and then we're going to put builders debris netting over the top. That'll stop any wild bird feces getting inside. As our construction of the frames is still underway, this old photograph shows what the final single 3 metre by 6 metre enclosure will look like. This photograph goes back to winter 2016, when we were last subject to avian influenza restrictions. We learnt a lot from this last time we used the structures. We know that any grass in the area will not survive. As a result, so that once the restrictions are lifted, we can simply return the chickens to their free-range field enclosure, we've decided to put the polytunnel frames in the main garden. The garden will be much easier to reseed once the chickens return to their field, rather than having to fence off areas of the field to reseed it. We're also going to maintain an electric fence outside of the frames, as bird netting over those frames won't be enough to deter foxes, badgers or other predators determined to get at the chickens. We have a lot to do, but we will be ready for the 14th of December. Now clearly this may not be a possibility for you, and it does cost money to buy these structures. So what I want to do is show you some other possibilities which would reduce the cost significantly. So let's get started on that. To meet the restriction requirements within the UK from the 14th of December, we have to house all the chickens. And for a lot of people that means spending money. But there are other opportunities to house your chickens without spending a great deal. If there's any structures on your property which could potentially be used, have a look and see what you've got. I do know of one or two people who are using their garages, and the cars have been moved out to the driveway, garage doors have been opened, and netting has been put over the front of the door. This is one of the things which we considered on our property, and it might look like a great big mound of ivy, and it is fully overgrown with ivy, but this used to be our log shed, and at the moment we're storing a lot of actually junk in there, old water butts and bits of pipe, but we can easily move all of this out, and we could have netted over the front because it's got 3 enclosed sides and a fully intact roof. No wild birds could get in providing net was over the front. We decided not to put the chickens in there though, because for us we have another possibility with the polytunnels, which means the chickens have got access more to the outside. But it doesn't mean that you can't look at the buildings on your property and see what could be used, and that would reduce the cost significantly. A potential low-cost option which gives your chickens lots and lots of room could be using something like this. This is actually the cover for one of our strawberry beds, but what we've done is we've constructed a goalpost frame out of 2x2 wood, so really quite cheap to duplicate, and then we've got this low-cost plumber's poly pipe which we've just bent over the top and stuck into the ground. We've then thrown bird netting over the top, and it does mean that it's got a very cheap structure but keeps birds out of our strawberries. There's nothing to say that you can't keep your chickens inside on grass and give them a much bigger area to run around, and it is a possibility. This is our fruit cage, and if you have one on your property it may be a good solution to house the chickens because it's really enclosed on all sides, and you can put netting over the top so it's got a roof on it too. Now for us, we actually rejected this as an option, and the reason for that is that we've got lots and lots of productive canes on the inside. We've got raspberries and blackberries in there. We spent a lot of time conditioning the soil so it's very soft and nutritious. The chickens would be digging down and disturbing the roots of the canes, which could damage their productivity for next year. The other thing is that a lot of the canes still have a lot of leaves on, and the chickens will just eat them immediately, strip those leaves off, which again could impact productivity for next year. So we've looked at other options, but it may work for you if you happen to have a fruit cage structure on your property. Disused greenhouses are a great opportunity to house your chickens during the avian influenza restrictions. There are some things to think about here. There is a great advantage with a greenhouse in that the low winter sun does heat up the greenhouse to a certain extent, which will make it a little bit warmer during the day. And at night, again, it will be a little bit warmer inside than it would be out in a polytunnel frame, such as what we've shown you earlier. But there are a couple of things to consider. The first is, can you get a coop through the doors? Now we're lucky enough that we've got double doors on all our greenhouses, so we can get a chicken coop inside should we wish to. The other thing to consider is ventilation, and there's some easy ways to resolve that. The first would be to take out some of the upper panes of glass and replace them with bird netting, and that will provide adequate ventilation without allowing predators to get in because it's upper panes of glass, or wild birds to encroach, which is what we're trying to resolve with the avian influenza restrictions. The other thing you could do is open the windows and add some bird netting on the inside, and that again will give it adequate ventilation. The final possibility is to open the doors a little bit and either put bird netting on the inside or even increase the space for your chickens by putting a fully wired chicken run on the outside so the chickens can come out if they need to. So greenhouses are a good possibility to house chickens. If you're looking for one of the cheapest solutions to the problem of housing your chickens indoors or netting them over during the period of the avian influenza restrictions, this could be one of the best options. This is my washing line. And I could just throw some bird netting over the top, peg it out like a tent at the sides, and use some zip ties to close up the ends. That gives the chickens a lot of space to roam in, but it means they're fully netted over. Now, we're lucky enough to have these old-fashioned clothesline posts in the garden, but you could easily string it up between 2 tree branches or any 2 upright structures in your garden. So this could be a very, very easy and cheap solution. What I've called effective disinfecting covers requirements 2, 4 and 5 from the UK government, and it's actually very simple. If you're a backyard chicken keeper, the equipment I show here is adequate to clean your boots. We use a gardener's gravel tray with a piece of AstroTurf in the bottom as an abrasive surface. As a disinfectant, you should add a DEFRA approved disinfectant, 2 of which we show here. There's a tablet called Virkon S, or there's J's Fluid. We also use a long-handled deck scrubbing brush to make cleaning our boots very simple. If your disinfectant station is outside, you need to ensure that it's kept at the right dilution. So that means if it rains, you'll probably have to replace the disinfectant in the tray because the rain will have diluted it. If you're moving between sites where poultry is kept, you should try and change your clothing before going to a new area and ensure that your vehicles are disinfected. So that includes cars, vans and quad bikes. If you move a new set of poultry into an existing poultry house, you must thoroughly disinfect it between the old flock moving out and the new flock moving in to prevent any infections moving between the 2 flocks. The reality is that all of this is actually good practice, and it makes a great deal of sense to safeguard our poultry. Restricting movements and access to poultry has been grouped together in the UK government guidance with effective vermin control. Both of these should be very simple to meet. Meeting this requirement is really straightforward. We've simply locked the gates to our property. So that means that anyone who comes onto our driveway or onto our land is supervised. We know exactly who they are and we know where they're going. If you don't have gates that you can lock, have a look at where you're choosing to keep your poultry. Can people access that area without you seeing them? If so, think about putting some kind of physical barrier up so that it's less likely they're going to be in that area. Because if anyone does go near your poultry, they need to be making use of disinfectant stations that you set up. Effective rodent control is the second part of this requirement, and it's also easy to meet. This is one of the poison bait stations that we keep in stock here. We also have kill traps, which are also very effective. Now, there is legislation out there which says that we can't put out rodent control measures unless there's evidence of rodents in the area. So that's just something to be aware of. And evidence would be droppings from rats or gnawing at your feed stations, but it is something you need to have in mind before putting out traps. The last requirement is around minimising contact between poultry and wild birds. If you've met the other requirements in the list, this should already have been achieved. But if your poultry are in a netted area rather than indoors, you may have to review your feeder and drinker arrangements. With the restrictions which were introduced in November 2020, to be able to free range our birds, we had to ensure that drinkers were in enclosed covered areas. And this is what we made to enclose our drinkers. So if I just tip this up, and you can see under there, there's one of the drinkers. And we're going to move this into our netted enclosures because it does have the added advantages. It's got a perch on top and somewhere for the chickens to play on and sit on. But it also means that if the worst does happen and some feces do happen to come through the netting, it cannot drop into the drinkers. So this meets the requirement. Under the November restrictions, we were also required to house our feeders in fully enclosed areas, and we've been keeping our treadle feeders inside disused coops. Now, the good news for us is under the new restrictions from the 14th of December, because we're going to be housing the chickens under a fully enclosed netted area with debris netting on top, the treadle feeders are enough to ensure that we comply with the legislation, because they are fully enclosed and they need an adult hen to actually stand on the treadle to open the lid. Once we have debris netting on top and a fully enclosed netting area, there is no chance that any wild bird has access to this feeder and feces cannot contaminate it. I hope that's helped you understand what's required for the avian influenza prevention restrictions from the 14th of December 2020. The situation is a temporary one and things may have moved on, so please click on the link to the description of this video to get the latest situation. It's possible that the restrictions have been extended, it's possible that they may have been lifted, so that link will give you the latest information. For now, we need to get on with our construction so we are ready for the 14th of December so that we are legally compliant. If there's any questions you have that I haven't answered in this video, pop them in the comments section and I'll do my best to answer them. If you have liked this content and found it helpful, take a moment and give me a thumbs up below. If you're not already a subscriber, come and join us. Hit the subscribe button and the notifications icon and you'll get to hear of any new video as soon as it's published. For now, thanks for watching and I look forward to seeing you next time.